Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, huge results yesterday from primaries across the country, but without question, the one that all eyes were on was in Maine. Just, maybe 2 hours away from the Kuhner man. And I got to tell you, it wasn't a surprise, but still, the Democrats actually did it. And I believe they have now crossed the Rubicon. They voted for Graham Plattner. He will now be their official nominee to challenge incumbent Senator Rhino Republican Susan Collins in November. And he won. It wasn't even close. He got 72% of the vote. Governor Janet Mills, the Democrat incumbent governor, she got barely 19, almost 19.5% of the vote. Now, she did basically stop running a campaign for many months. She just put the whole thing on pause. But you thought, with all of the controversies, everything that has now come out about this man, he's not just toxic. He's literally politically radioactive. This man now is an albatross around the Democratic Party and around the National Democrats as they head into the midterms. And yet, the party that has gone after Donald Trump, you, me, MAGA, conservatives, it's been 10 years now where it's Nazi, 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 Hitler, 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 fascist, 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 ad nauseum, to the point that it's led to three, assassination attempts on Trump. It has gotten MAGA supporters like Charlie Kirk shot and killed. It has led to massive attacks and discrimination and persecution against conservatives across the entire country. Guess what? They just elected a Nazi Democrat to be their nominee in November. And in many ways, he is now the poster child for the new radical Democratic Party. Listen now to Graham Plattner deliver his victory speech. And I want you to just remember, this is a man who we now know definitively had a Nazi SS death head tattoo on his chest for 18 years. The guy has a Nazi tattoo stamp right on his chest. A man who is a vile, virulent anti-Semite, an open supporter of Hamas and Hezbollah, who has cheered on the murder of innocent Jewish men, women, and children, a self-described communist, a man who has a sexual fetish to this day of going to porta potties in public and, forgive me, pleasuring himself sexually. A man who has sent sexting after sexting after sexting messages of himself nude, his private parts, his genitalia, to at least a dozen women. A man who 3 former girlfriends say he physically or sexually abused them. A man who disparaged and mocked and called for the murder of American service members with Purple Hearts. And I'm just scratching the surface. I'm talking cocaine use, drug use. I mean, I could just go on and on with this, and I believe the worst is yet to come. I'm telling you, we haven't heard the worst of it. A man who says that women who are raped deserve to be raped. So this is who they voted for. The party that claims to be anti-Nazi voted for a Nazi. The party that claims to be diverse and intolerant and inclusive voted for a Jew hater, a misogynist, a sexist, a bigot. Everything the Democrats claim they stand for, they just voted for. Everything they say they're against, they voted for. Everything they claim they're against, they now voted and supported wholeheartedly. I'm telling you, they're not going to live this one down. They have crossed the Rubicon. And I believe it's going to cost them the Senate seat in Maine. And I believe it's going to cost them the Senate in November. They made the biggest political mistake. In this country, we don't do fascism. In this country, we don't do Nazism. But listen now to Graham Plattner. Him and his spin people are now trying to claim he has found redemption. Religion is in the water in Maine. And now rises among us a transformed, redeemed, socialist progressive. Roll cut to C. Mike.
Redemption is not just some simple or easy destination. It's a journey. I've made mistakes in my life, mistakes that I regret, that I live with, and that I continue to learn from. And I'm still far from perfect. But every day, I wake up and I try to be a little bit better and a little bit kinder than I was the day before. And if you give me the chance, I will be a senator for the people who cannot afford to buy a senator.
So he's found redemption. Maine has redeemed him. And like Lazarus, he is now rising from the political dead. And he wants to lead Maine and the United States to a socialist utopia. Obviously working in collusion and coordination with his kingmakers and queenmakers. That is Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, the Democratic Socialists of America, Mamdani. All of them put everything they had behind him. They believe their words, not mine, that he is going to be a quote-unquote political superstar. They are saying now that he will be, in some ways, the face, the voice, the poster child for the socialist communist movement in the United States. And Maine, they say, has now delivered the first communist into the United States Senate in that state's history. Listen now to Graham Plattner saying he is going to take it to Susan Collins, and he wants to now portray her as being completely owned and controlled by billionaires and greedy corporations. And this is how Maine will now elect their first communist ever to Congress. Roll cut 2D, Mike.
I will stand up for you and against billionaires and greedy corporations. I will serve you, the people of Maine, not some lobbyist or party boss. I will be the champion for your dreams as if it were my own, no matter the challenge or the expense. I will fight for you. I have been willing to die for my country. There is nothing that I will not do for the state of Maine. You have lifted me up. You have had my back. This is the state that raised me, and this is the state that saved me.
So, by the way, you want to talk about a freaking fraud. He's owned by Bernie and AOC. You want to talk about I'm not going to be controlled by some lobbyist or party boss. What are you talking about? In fact, it was a wealthy DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. It was a very wealthy DSA couple that recruited him. Socialist billionaires recruited him. He's owned by people like George Soros. He's owned by people like Neville Singham. They're the ones who are underwriting and funding his entire campaign. The globalists and the socialist billionaires own this guy like a $10 streetwalker. Who is this guy kidding? He's owned by Bernie and AOC. He's owned by the socialist communist party bosses. They say jump, he says how high. This fraud. And by the way, this working man shtick, he was born into wealth and privilege. He's loaded. He's a multimillionaire. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. This guy's no oyster farmer. He plays at being an oyster farmer. So everything about him is absolutely fake. There's not an authentic, real bone in his body. But I'll tell you this, he's unstable. He's mentally unstable. He's psychologically unstable. Of course, you can always message me on Messenger. This is from Marianne. Jeff, this guy, Graham Plattner, is a con man. He is gaslighting, and all abusers do that, and they have that craft down to a science. It is absolutely awful. He is actually disgusting to look at. As I have said before, and I'll say it 1,000 more times, he abuses his wife, and she is now codependent because of the abuse. Verbal, emotional, mental. And even though it hasn't come out, I would put money on a physically abused wife. God help Maine. God help this country. I can't believe what I'm seeing this election cycle. Communists, Muslims, and the people that want them to overtake our country. Trust me, these people that think Trump is bad are going to be begging to have somebody like Trump again. If these people actually do what most of us know and believe they will do to the states that vote or voted them in. May God help America. Bingo. I mean, bingo. If he gets elected in November, I'm telling you, Maine is screwed, and we're going to have a very, very dangerous individual in the Senate. Someone who is clearly, psychologically, mentally not right in the head. I don't know how the Democrats can ever live this down. You elected a guy, remember, 18 years. 18 years. A Nazi SS death head tattoo right on his chest. The worst of the worst. The SS were the ones that went in and exterminated the Jews, threw them in mass graves and mass pits. They were the ones who were guarding and enforcing the concentration camps where the Jews were thrown into the ovens. And this is the guy the Democrats vote for? And his girlfriends, 1, 2, 3, 4, all of them. Never mind that he likes to hit women. Never mind that he likes to shake them, hurt them, bruise them. As one said, he grabbed me by the arm, twisted my arm, threw me into my bedroom in a fit of rage, and then locked me in like I was an animal in a cage. Okay, this is the kind of guy Democrats just voted for. Okay, but, let all of that go. Just let all of that go. You're now going to continue to accuse Trump and Trump supporters of being Nazis and fascists after what you've just voted in Maine? And this is very important. Fully blessed and supported. By the way, Schumer now, the Senate minority leader, and should they take back the Senate in November, he will be the Senate majority leader. Schumer, who happens to be Jewish. And from my understanding, or at least he claims, that he had family members who died or perished in the Holocaust. Schumer has now endorsed fully Graham Plattner. Bernie endorsed him from the beginning, and basically he and AOC propelled him over the top. Mamdani loves him. Elizabeth Warren, quote unquote, he's my kind of man. The entire Democratic Party has now closed ranks, and they are supporting him to the hilt. Now, to me, this is a watershed. This is clearly, they have crossed the Rubicon into totalitarian politics. And he's a violent man. He's a very violent man. Let me be brutally honest with you, like I'm in a confessional. You want to know my fear with this guy? My fear with this guy, because he's so unhinged mentally. a Republican in a speech denounces him on the Senate floor. Say he wins in November. Let's just assume he wins, just for the sake of argument. Or he's attacked in a debate, as you know how it is in the Senate, at a committee hearing or whatever. It can get pretty testy, it can get pretty nasty. I wouldn't put it past this guy to take a gun. I'm being very serious. And go into the Senate and off some conservatives or off some Republican senators. He's that unhinged. He's that crazy. Forgive me. There are bathrooms all over, when you're on Capitol Hill, especially where the Senate is. Is he going to be running to those bathrooms with his sexual fetish and, forgive me, pleasuring himself? Because he's a sex addict. Is he going to continue to show naked pictures of himself to young women, maybe even young girls? Because he's on an app that is used heavily by pedophiles. So are we going to see pictures of his naked genitalia and have him send it off to staffers or aides or God knows who? I mean, is this what we expect now from the Democrats and the people they elect? And by the way, they had an ultra-liberal governor. I don't know how you could get, frankly, more liberal than Janet Mills. But that wasn't good enough. Wasn't sexy enough. Wasn't cool enough. No, they had to go with the guy with a Nazi tattoo. And by the way, a man who openly says he is a hammer and sickle communist. He supports the collectivization of agriculture. Do you know how insane that is? Stalin did that. Mao did that. He wants to abolish all of ICE. Flood this country with illegal aliens. He wants to confiscate and seize private property. In fact, I'm going to play you a cut on the other side that I'm going to take calls. He's now calling for the imprisonment, jailing billionaires. I could go on and on and on. This is now the face and the voice of the Democratic Party? He's a Nazi Democrat. And his victory now signifies the triumph of Nazi Democrats within the Democratic Party. Cleaning up the liberal bull, or in this case now, the Nazi Democrat bull. Seriously. By the way, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Now, I was going to play a cut where Graham Plattner clearly says where it's time to start jailing billionaires, putting them in prison. However, Mike says, I can't play the cut. Now, why can't the Kuhner man play the cut? I mean, it does say the Kuhner report, right? I mean, I thought it was my show. No, I was misguided thinking it was my show. Mike has instructed me that they're going to play the cut in Truth and Troll, or Truth or Troll, forgive me. So that's going to be at about 7:20-ish. So because they want to play that cut for Truth or Troll, they're saying I can't play the cut now. Now, why can't we play the cut twice? Where does it say? I mean, what is it, the 11th commandment? Where is it etched in stone? That's number one. And number two, I had no idea Mike was now the boss. From the book, of Sandy Shack. So I had no idea now that Sandy Shack and Mike had basically now they've taken over the show. I mean, don't mind me. I'm just the host. I mean, why should my opinion matter? So trust me when I tell you, he's calling for billionaires to be thrown in jail, and we will play the cut for you at 7:20, okay? Now, just one last final point, and then I'm going right to the phone lines. As Sandy is loading them up. 617-266-6868. We've noticed the rise in anti-Semitism within the Democratic Party. It is now unquestionable. You see it in their rank and file. You see it in protest after protest. You see it clearly with Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, incredibly Bernie Sanders, because he happens to be Jewish, but it doesn't matter. You see it obviously with Graham Plattner with the Nazi tattoo. Zoran Mamdani. I could go on and on. Not just the hatred of Israel, not just even open, blatant support for Hamas, which wants Israel and all Jews to be murdered and wiped off the face of the earth, their support for Hezbollah, their open support for the Ayatollahs in Iran, which is one of the most, not just anti-American, but one of the most virulent anti-Semitic regimes in world history. Their anti-Semitism is on a par with that of the Third Reich. The most popular book in Iran is the Quran. The second most popular book is obviously Mein Kampf. So these are the powerful anti-Semitic forces that all of these leading Democrats now have allied themselves with. Anti-Semitism is really now, to me, what defines the Democratic Party. It animates it. And you saw this clearly with Graham Plattner. It is a test case. Graham Plattner, the Nazi tattoo guy, was going head-to-head with Janet Mills. Now, I can do issue after issue after issue. What distinguished Plattner from Mills? Hardly nothing. Hardly anything. They're almost identical. They're far leftists. I don't care if it's transgenderism. I don't care if it's open borders. I don't care if it's defund the police. I don't care if it's abolish ICE. I don't care if it's climate change. I don't care if it's soak the rich or confiscate all the money from billionaires and millionaires. What distinguished them was his Nazi tattoo. And what the Nazi tattoo, and that's why it popped with so many Democrats and so many liberals. The fact that he had, as his girlfriend said, his ex-girlfriends, he kept referring to it as my Totenkopf. That's the German word for the SS death head symbol. So in other words, my SS tattoo, my Totenkopf. It's mine, my little baby. I love it. I cherish it. It's on my chest. Mwah, 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 mwah. Kiss it. 18 years. You know what they said? This guy's a real Jew hater. He doesn't play one to the audience, to the galleries. He doesn't pretend to be one. And maybe will take AIPAC money on the side, as some Democrats do. They're pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, but they'll take money from AIPAC. No. The signal that sent was that this guy's a hardcore anti-Semite. He's the real deal. He hates Jews. He hates them in Israel. He hates them here. He's a hardcore, real National Socialist. He's our guy. He's our guy. And it was that, ironically, that propelled him to political stardom. That's what gave him the huge surge where he just blew away Janet Mills to the point that she gave up campaigning, saying there's no point. He's got such a massive, insurmountable lead. So the Nazi tattoo, far from being an obstacle, far from being an albatross, far from being something that would, is a strike against him. No. The Nazi tattoo was his biggest selling point for these hardcore left-wing, pro-Hamas anti-Semites that now constitute the base of the Democratic Party. So what you're seeing now, this is the term I want to use. There are two terms that I think now need to be used in our political lexicon going from this point forward, because we have to properly define our enemy. One, and you see it clearly now with Plattner, Nazi Democrats. Plattner is one of many, maybe the embodiment of the Nazi Democrats, of these anti-Semitic, National Socialist Democrats who get a lot of their hatred and a lot of their ideas from the 1930s. and it is being reborn again in our time. And number two, this clearly now communist movement that has infiltrated and now taken over completely the Democratic Party, as embodied by Bernie Sanders, as embodied by Zoran Mamdani, as embodied by AOC, as embodied now, you're seeing it in California. This Nitha Rahman is now could easily now surpass Karen Bass. Katie Wilson, the mayor in Seattle, hardcore communist. Brandon Johnson, the mayor in Chicago, hardcore communist. Ayanna Pressley, hardcore communist. Michelle Wu, hardcore communist. Ilhan Omar, hardcore communist. Rashida Tlaib, hardcore communist. So you're seeing now an alliance, a red-black alliance. Black as in National Socialism, red as in communism. And so you have the commie-crats. The Democrats are no longer the Democrats. They are the commie-crats. And the Nazi Democrats have now formed an unholy alliance. And what's driving a lot of this rise in the Nazi Democrats is, of course, Islam and radical Islam. And you're seeing it now in races in New Jersey, the rise of these anti-Semitic Islamist Democrats, and in Michigan. So what we're watching now is the birth of the commie-crats and the Nazi Democratic Party, the Nazi Democrats. All right, I want to ask you a double-barreled question. Number one, just overall, what do you make of the fact now that they have crossed the Rubicon? The Democrats now have actually done it. They have voted for the guy with the Nazi tattoo. It's done. They can never undo it again. Graham Plattner won the primary, won it convincingly, 72%. The governor, very liberal governor, uber liberal governor, Janet Mills got 19.5%. He clearly won almost 3/4 of the vote. That is a very strong endorsement from the main Democratic Party. Will he win in November? That's number one. Number two, ultimately, is he going to be a liability for the Democrats? A Nazi Democrat with his past, his baggage, obviously the Nazi tattoo being the most flagrant, but everything else? Or will it not matter? Are we now seeing the rise and the birth of a very radical, extreme, Jew-hating, anti-Semitic party? And that Democrats will come out for Plattner in record numbers. And does he now represent the future of the Democrats? Bernie, the reason why I ask it exactly like this is Bernie Sanders says yes. AOC says yes. Elizabeth Warren, Mamdani, even Chuck Schumer now have all come out and said he is the political rock star. That's the term they use, rock star of the future. 617-266-6868. Mark in Connecticut. You're going to kick us off, Mark. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you. Hey, throughout history, despots and control freaks have always needed an enemy. You know, Hitler with the Jews and on throughout history. They set up a straw man, and they flog him, and they get people behind him. And I have a very smart relative of mine who now hates the Jews, blames them for everything from Hamas to the Kennedy assassination. I'm not lying. She says, it was the Jews. So everything is the Jews with her, and that's what these people do. If the Republicans weren't castrated years ago, they would, see this as a great opportunity and pour money into Maine and run commercial after commercial. You can use the guy's own words because most people aren't, Nazis. and realize what the Nazis did. But the Republicans have no guts, and I have no illusion that they're going to grow a set, anytime soon, because they're on the take, just like the rest of our government is. As far as Schumer goes, and all the other ones, Schumer is about as much of a Jew as I am, and I'm a Christian. I mean, his true religion is money
and power
and liberalism.
Yeah, and power.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mark, I got to tell you, very eloquent, very powerful. I want to ask you, do you I don't mean fear like you personally are afraid of him. I don't mean it that way. I mean politically, the rise of Graham Plattner, the rise of these Nazi Democrats, the rise of this radical left, what do you want to call them? The Bernie wing, the Bolshevik wing, whatever you want to call it, the commie-crats, as I call them. Are we seeing now a radically transformed, different Democratic Party that truly is dangerous and dangerous for the country? In other words, does this election of Plattner signal a very dangerous turn in where the Democratic Party is heading? Do you feel like that? Or do you feel they've gone so extreme that now they're going to get wiped out in November? I mean, how do you feel about Plattner? Do you fear him? I don't mean personally, but I mean, do you fear that he may be the future? Or do you see him as a con man and a clown, and that the voters will see right through him, and it will cost the Democrats dearly in November? In other words, is he dangerous or is he just a buffoon?
He's dangerous and he is a buffoon. But you could be both. The Democrats, as far as they've gone, get millions of people who will vote for them. It's amazing. And like I said, intelligent people now hating the Jews in Israel. It's unbelievable. And people fall in line over and over again. Like you said once, remember you said, your students were saying, that could never happen here as far as Nazi Germany. Yeah, it could. And this is a witness to it all. But I think there's enough Americans that would put a stop to this. There's enough, country-loving, normal people who can tamp this down rather, quickly once, people wake up and, stop this. And we have to get behind Republicans who actually haven't lost their manhood, yet and stuff, and continue to keep their man, like Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance. And we need to get rid of all the rhinos and all the people on the take and stuff, and get people in there who will fight for the country. I believe in the Constitution, 100%. That was the most, well-written, intelligent document in the history of mankind. And I will stand behind it with my life.
Amen.
And
Mark,
I know
amen.
millions of Americans will, too.
And I'm with you all the way. Mark, I'm with you. Look, Mark, every time you call, Dynamite call, please just call more often. That's my only criticism. Dynamite call as always. Thank you, Mark. Larry in Arkansas. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome. Larry? Larry, are you working out and there's music in the background? What's Larry? Sounds like he's got like heavy metal on or something. All right. Bob in Plymouth. Sorry, Larry, if I interrupted your workout. Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Bob.
I tell you the truth. I feel that Susan Collins will get reelected without a problem. It's just that, I don't know, that's the way I feel. I don't know why I feel that way, but I do. And people got to be smarter than what we're seeing today,
Well, Bob, look, she always finds a way to pull it out. That's number one. Number two, and I don't know what it is. I'm just stating a fact. You look at every election cycle she's been in. She always overperforms compared to the polls. So, for example, the polls will say she's neck and neck. It's anybody's race. And she ends up winning by 5-6%. Like this happens again and again, that for whatever reason, either people don't want to admit they're going to vote for her. Maybe they're Democrats and they don't want their friends to know or their family to know, but they actually secretly pulled a lever for her. I don't know what it is, but you are right. She always finds a way to win somehow, by hook or by crook. She gets it done. So you're on that. I'm with you 1,000%, Bob. The only thing I would say is this, and I don't want to read to you the full text because it was a long text, but it's from 781. And I just want to the first couple sentences, and then I want to get your reaction, Bob. 781 writes, and he says, Jeff, I have watched now countless speeches by Graham Plattner. I've been watching him since last summer. And I've engaged with hundreds of his supporters on social media, both women and men. And he says the striking thing about him is that he has, like Obama, a Svengali-like effect on the audience or the crowd. He almost hypnotizes them. And he hypnotizes them the way Obama did. Because he's a marvelous storyteller. He tells a narrative. They're downtrodden. He's downtrodden. But they can defeat the powers that be. In this case, the Jews, the billionaires, the so-called rich corporations. And if you just vote for him, he can restore what Maine used to be. And he makes these, he crafts these stories about his mom baking in the kitchen while he, was out picking blueberries in the hot July sun, while his dad was out fishing or doing some craftsmanship and paying the bills. And so he appeals to this nostalgic Maine of 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And people are like, yeah, I want that. Where they had a modest home, but no mortgage. Where everything was affordable. And, and you had beautiful Christmas gifts. And it was neighbor helping neighbor. He's always going on about this. A tree is down. They lend him a chainsaw. Stuff like this. Person's car breaks down. Someone comes and helps you, put on the spare tire. And so they long for another time. In their view, a better time. And the point 781 was making is, but when I link to his positions on issues, I go, look, this is what he's pushing and what he's going to implement should he go to Washington. It's from his own campaign website. You're going to be flooded with Somalis. Like the illegals are going to pour in. He's going to defund the police. You're going to have criminals everywhere. You're going to be paying, 100 times more for energy. He wants to end fossil fuels. Do you understand what that means? Everything's going to be wind and solar. Your energy costs are going to explode. Inflation is going to explode. When you start going through all of his positions, he wants to confiscate private property. You understand that? He's talking about putting political enemies in jail. Like, do you understand that? Here's the link. They don't want to believe it. He says, this is 781, says, then they just shut down the conversation. Now, I don't want to overdo this because I hate using Hitler, but it's got a Hitler Mussolini a little bit. There's a brilliant short story. I promise, Bob, I'm coming back to you. There is a brilliant short story by Thomas Mann, Mann. He was a German conservative, brilliant, a novelist, a short story writer, and he wrote primarily in the 1920s and 1930s. And he was virulently anti-fascist, anti-Hitler, anti-Mussolini. And the short story is called The Mario and the Magician. And basically, it's a story really about Mussolini. It's really about Mussolini, but it's a magician on stage. and how this magician was able to just, like a Svengali, mesmerize the audience, even though what he was selling was snake oil. But he said it was the power to manipulate, to captivate, to mesmerize, to almost hypnotize the audience. Now, Obama had that quality as well. I'm telling you, there's something about Graham Plattner. He has that. Now, he's got a lot of other problems, but people look to him. They don't move. You can hear a pin drop. They believe his BS. I mean, hook, line, and sinker. And I'm getting a lot of texts and emails from women who've been in abusive relationships. And they say, I'm telling you, he's a classic abuser. And they're great storytellers. And they're great con men. And they've got a story for everything so that you forget the abuse because you so believe in the con, in the sales job, in the hypnosis. And I'm telling you, it's going to come out he's abusing his wife. That you take to the bank. And I think it's going to be more. I don't think this is only the beginning of the scandals that are going to come out. But that's the secret sauce that he has. That's why Republicans should not underestimate him. Because this guy can beat Susan Collins. Because this guy can deliver a speech like very few people I've seen. Bob, final word to you.
I listen to what he says, and I don't believe a word he says. That's why I think that Susan Collins is going to win. I don't believe a word the guy says.
Well, Bob, to be frank, look, you're highly intelligent. You're wise. You're a long-time, political observer. You got very good IQ, obviously. You're street smart. That's not a lot of Democrats and independents in Maine. I mean, I hate to say that. You'd see through a used car salesman in 30 seconds. They'd buy the whole parking lot. Anyway, Bob, quickly before I let you go, the Nazi tattoo, the fact that he had it for so long and he was so proud of it, only got rid of it when he ran for office last year. Now we know from many girlfriends he loved it. He knew what it meant. He knew it was an SS tattoo, and he said it was my tattoo. He loved it. He bragged about it. Is this now going to damage the Democrats going into November as a party that they now chose a Nazi? What say you?
Would never vote for him if they're smart. But I'm not so sure about how intelligent some of these people are. That's my only fear.
Yeah, you and I are completely simpatico, as usual. Bob, thank you very much for that call. Yeah, if you're smart, the answer is no. But we're talking about Democrats. And, we're talking about Bill in Sudbury and Chris in Gloucester. Intelligence and IQ are not their strong suit. You know what I mean? We're not talking Einsteins here. Larry in Arkansas. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I was trying to play you the Nazi theme song.
Oh, I thought it was like heavy metal workout music.
No. It was funnier in my head.
Well, Larry, what do you make of it? They did it. They voted for the guy with the Nazi, the SS Death Head Totenkopf, as it's called, tattoo. What say you, Larry?
Well, Jeff, honestly, this was needed. Think about this. Since Obama, you brought up Obama and his Bengali-like ways, but Obama kept his snakeskin hidden. He didn't shed it until it was too late for the country, right? Trump has these fools so desperate, they're just exposing themselves. So now, I think I discussed this a call or two ago, we're going for bright colors, not the pale pastels, as Reagan said. There's going to be a distinct line in November between America and communism. There's no getting around it. So now we're going to see what this country's about.
Larry, let me put it bluntly to you. The fact now that they got a guy who brags and has bragged for 18 years. I got an SS Nazi tattoo. The only good Jew is a dead Jew. He loves Hamas. He loves Hezbollah. He loves Iran. He sees Jewish conspiracies everywhere. When Fetterman, for example, challenged him and said, I'll tell you what, I'll wear a suit every day in the Senate if you just release all of your sexting messages. Just release all of it. Because Fetterman is saying it's underage girls. Fetterman is saying if you're on that app, Kik, K-I-K, he goes, there's no way this guy was not deliberately sexting naked pictures of his private parts to underage women. He goes, I don't believe him. I'm telling you, these weren't young women. These were underage women or underage girls. So he said, just release all the sexting messages. And if you're clean, you release them. And I'm telling you, I will wear a suit every single day. In other words, you'll own me. Because Fetterman says he hates wearing a suit. And his response was, he went after Fetterman's Jewish ancestry. And then he said, yeah, he's a tool of AIPAC. In other words, the Jews run him and the Jews control him. He can't help himself. And so my question to you, we have a Nazi Democrat. We have a virulent Jew hater and anti-Semite. Disgusting, obscene. Is this going to hurt the Democrats going into November? Is this going to hurt them or is it going to help them? What say you?
Oh, like you said, this is that millstone around the neck of the Democratic Party. Pick your category at this point. Everything they've accused Trump of being over the last 10 years is all rolled up into this guy. Womanizer, woman abuser, Nazi. What's left?
Disparaging our troops, right? Disparaging our troops the way he was disparaging those Purple Heart recipients, our soldiers in Afghanistan. You're right. Everything they said about Trump, it's him. Like to a T. To a T. I mean, the hypocrisy here it's mind-blowing. Larry, you think in the end he's going to be a liability, yes?
Yeah, he's going to end up taking down other candidates just by association.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Larry. And I think this is why all these Democrats that are backing him and endorsing him, it's going to blow up in their face. He's the poison chalice. And you're like, they just drank it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thanks for taking the call, Jeff.
My pleasure, Dan.
I believe the last time we spoke, I mentioned that he was going to, Platinum was going to win, and he certainly has, and he's doing it in a great fashion. You know, when you say, he's crazy, he's crazy, he's crazy, he's crazy like a fox. And he really embodies, and and this is the truth. It took Hitler 10 years to get to where he was. And let's face it, he was crazy as hell. But he possessed the same type of captivating crowd attention the way that Plattner does. And as far as being radical, just as radical. In fact, will be more radical in the event if he beats Collins. I will tell you, and I will project, that the only way to stop him, and Trump, I hope you're listening. I know that you're not in love with Susan Collins, but if she doesn't win, you are going to spawn a would-be champion of the Democratic lunatic party. He needs to bite the bullet, go up there, support Susan Collins as much as he doesn't want to, because if he doesn't, he's going to have we're going to have more greater worries in this country if Plattner is successful, because he's going to continue to be successful. He's going to be a force, and not only a force, but a leading force. And that's why you see a blind eye on everything bad that he does. The man could practically get away with murder, and they wouldn't see it. This guy has got talent. He's got an ability for people to listen. He's like a Pied Piper, except a Pied Piper of a communist socialist regime that would definitely take down this country. And everybody who has freedom and independence, you just might as well kiss that goodbye, because it will be goodbye. This man is dangerous. He's ready to escalate in politics, much like Hitler himself. And I think he embodies Hitler more than people ever think. He doesn't look like him, but he has that appeal. The crowd likes what he says, and basically they will blindly follow him as they did with Hitler. And let's face it, he's got a copy of Mein Kampf probably in his back pocket, and I think he studied it very well. And I think it was successful for the Hitler regime, and I think it will be successful for him if he's allowed to get off the ground. I told you that he was going to win. He won, and I see him continue to winning unless if he's stopped, and the only one to stop him is our champion, Trump. And as much as he may not like Susan Collins, he needs to be in Maine, because I'll tell you, from Bar Harbor to Kittery, Plattner owns it. He owns all the major cities, too. The rural areas are still Trump and conservative, but Trump needs to go up there and basically shake the tree, get out the conservatives, stimulate that main population that's being bamboozled by Plattner. And if it doesn't happen, this man is going to rise to power, much like Hitler did. He reminds me of Hitler. He really does. When you talk about him and the way that you've explained it, think about what you're saying. It's almost the same avenue that Hitler took. Start out small, gain momentum. The politics ended up loving him. Then he got in it, gained more momentum, and then just came to power. And once he got into power, as we all know what happened. He basically fulfilled everything that he wanted to fulfill. There'll be nothing to stop Plattner once he gains full, complete power in a position of maybe even the presidency. If this trajectory is not stopped, I predict very bad things.
Well, Dan, just to piggyback off of what you're saying, to push the Mussolini or the Hitler analogy a little bit further, he's a war veteran, like both Hitler and Mussolini were. They fought in World War I. He casually talks about jailing his opponents, murdering his opponents, putting billionaires in jail. There's the Jew hatred, especially when it comes to comparison to Hitler, blaming the Jews for everything. There's a lot there. Now, is he the reincarnation of Hitler? I don't think so. But I think you're right. He's very dangerous. I think he's a damaged man. And I think he can do just tremendous damage to the country. And I think that Republicans better take him very seriously. And I think not just him. I think now they have to take the rise of Nazi Democrats very seriously. This is now a strong movement within their party. And look, he's part of the Democratic Socialists of America. That's Bernie, that's AOC, that's Mamdani. Well, they're the ones who stole the election for against Spencer Pratt for that communist Nithya Raman. He gets the DSA and their shock troops into Maine, especially in those illegal alien communities where the Somalis are and others. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Which is the most disturbing story about Graham Plattner? Offensive media posts, sexting, the accusations of physical intimidation, especially by his ex-girlfriends, or the Nazi tattoo on his chest. So what do you think for you is the most disturbing about Graham Plattner? And please, know all of the above. I really want you to focus on, these are the four main charges against him so far. Is it A, these disturbing, offensive media posts on social media? B, the sexting, nude pictures of his private parts, forgive me, to at least, 6 to 12 young women, maybe even underage? The C, the accusations of abuse, physical intimidation by his ex-girlfriends? Or 4, the Nazi SS death head tattoo that he proudly wore on his chest for 18 years. And by the way, that he only covered up after he decided to run for office. What his ex-girlfriend said, he kept saying over and over again, my Totenkopf, my SS death head symbol. So A, media posts, B, sexting, C, intimidation, D, tattoo. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in Nazi ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in National ER. John in Lowell. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, John.
Jeff, I'm going to preface with this. You posed the question earlier, are Democrats becoming dangerous? Jeff, you're a historian. You know as well as I do, if not better. They've always been dangerous, Jeff. They're just getting more dangerous. That's the answer. Now, Jeff, I just did a 5-day trip recently up to the Canadian border. Decided to take a break, took the dog, fished all the way back. In Lee, Maine, I believe it was, which is way up north, I went into a Walmart, Jeff, and it was a freak show. Now, when you think of Maine, what do you think of?
Honestly, I think of, a lot of white people, farmers, fishermen. That's what I think of Maine.
Customers and workers alike, out of shape, lazy, multicolored hair. I don't care anymore. I'm calling it out there. It was absolutely disgusting, Jeff. Now, you have a state where 50% of able-bodied workers don't work. This is who's voting for him. He is obviously a depraved individual. So you have depraved people voting for a depraved person, looking to keep getting their welfare check, Jeff. That's all it is.
John, I had no idea it was that bad. 50% of the adults in Maine are on welfare. They don't work?
That's according to my friend Marty, who lives in Monmouth, and he pays attention to stuff very bad, very much. Now, Jeff, also, I made it down to his house. I spent a night with him and his wife. Thank you if they're listening. I said, I'm going to go over to Narrow Pond. Where's a Walmart? He said, well, there's 2 of them, and I don't go to the Auburn one unless I'm carrying my sidearm. There's some volumes there. He said it's out of control.
Wow.
That's the new Maine, Jeff.
Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. John, if the sense I get from you, you think Plattner's going to win in November, right?
Depravity voting for depravity, Jeff. That's all it is. And their welfare check. They don't care. They don't care about anything else. Who's going to keep my money coming in? That's it.
Wow.
And we do it on the other end. Who's going to take lease of my money? Well, we're working for ours, Jeff. Jeff.
Yeah.
The only way he won't, and this should be done, if he was sending those pictures to underage girls, he should be immediately arrested. Immediately. And if he's not, this is what kills me, Jeff. We have so many things we could be doing to these evil SOBs, and it's not being done. Why, Jeff? You have a worldwide pedophile cannibalism, admittedly, in the Epstein files, sex trafficking operation, and no one stood up against that, Jeff? Jeff, what are we going to stand up against? We didn't stand up against that. We should have all been in the streets with pitchforks. We're done, buddy. I hate to say it. We're done.
John, God bless you, my friend, and thank you so much for that call. Well, look, let me just play Fetterman here, because Fetterman is convinced that it's underage girls. He's saying, you're on kick. Those nude pictures were to underage girls. Now, John is right. They get him on that. He's finished, because that's a crime. I mean, there's no getting around it. So I don't care if they're on welfare, not on welfare, love his Nazi tattoo, don't love his Nazi tattoo. They get him on the sexting to underage girls. It's good night, Irene. Listen now to Fetterman saying, look, everything now is about redemption. This is all Plattner talks about, redemption. I was lost, but I'm now found. Maine has given me redemption. Maine voters have given me grace. They have forgiven the sins of my past, blah, 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 blah. And listen now to Fetterman saying, don't buy his con artist routine. Don't buy his con man routine. The only thing he has admitted to, the only thing he ever apologizes for, is for the things that he's been caught doing. There's no redemption. He's a con man, and he's playing everybody. Roll cut 5. Mike.
Before he was about ready to run for the Senate, he thought he was clever, and they're going to delete, all of his P Hustle account with Reddit. But he forgot that the internet never forgets, and all of those things that he said. Now, it's not like he acknowledged that he got caught. And now, whether it's what happened where, what he did with those women in that article, or the terrible things that he said, could you imagine if a Republican had an absolute Nazi tattoo on your chest, or if a Republican described that a Purple Heart recipient is a dumb MFer that doesn't deserve to live, or describe our army as absolute trash, those things. So this isn't about redemption. This is a man that's just consistently get caught, with the behavior and the things that he's done his entire life.
He's completely right. He's 1,000% correct. 1,000% correct. And I'm telling you, there's going to be more to come. We're just, to me, this is just the tip of the iceberg. So, and the amazing thing is the Democrats are going to stay with them all the way to the end. And I agree with John. There's a lot of dirt, and I believe a lot of crimes. And it's time for some real Oppo research on this guy. You find those crimes, he's finished. 617-266-6868. Okay, Dr. Grace is warming up in the bullpen. She's going to be on in 9 minutes at 9 o'clock sharp. Harry in Maine. Thanks for holding, Harry, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Good morning.
Hi.
Jeff, I disagree with a couple of callers ago regarding having Trump come up and basically endorse wholeheartedly Susan Collins. But hold that thought for a minute. On your poll, I vote B, sexting. Reason? The guy's freaking perverted, and that shows he's perverted, and that explains all the other behavior. Plain and simple. He's like that Anthony Weiner down in New York, and your last caller said it too. If they have any evidence that he exposed himself to underage people, he needs to be prosecuted immediately. The other thing, too, just as a quick comparison, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but, 2 years ago, they tried to make Tim Walz somewhat the face of the male Democrat, the ideal male Democrat,
yes,
and trying to win the male vote. And just contrast him with Plattner. Walz didn't work. I mean, the guy tried to come across a little bit of a hard guy. He's an high school football coach, had some military service, blah, 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 but he had the woke values. That failed miserably. It didn't appeal to the typical male, all right? And now you get Plattner, more of a rugged guy. He's got the mustache, the goatee, whatever, the tattoos. He's gruff. He sounds gruff. and he's got all the woke values and worse. Communist, socialist, Marxist values fully exposed. So I think they're trying. Plan A didn't work, so Plan B is let's use this guy as the model and try to win some of the male vote in addition to the white liberal woman. So that's just my feeling on that one. But I want to talk about
Harry. Before you get to the other point, do you think it's going to work? Unlike with Waltz.
So I really don't think so. You know, the polls are misleading. 6 years ago, Susan Collins had a real run for her money. This woman, Gideon, ran against her. And I live in southern Maine, okay? And there were signage all over the place. I thought she was toast. And she was ahead like by 9 points in the polls. I said, she's gone. And she ended up winning by like 8 points. So the polls up here are really misleading. And I do still think Susan Collins can carry the vote. And that leads me to my last point. I disagree with your caller 2 callers ago. As much as I understand what he's saying, and I would initially react the same way, I think it would be a huge mistake to have Trump come up here and be too vocal and too visible, because they hate him up here. They absolutely hate him. And I think people would just go out of their way. Would you agree with this? If Trump cured cancer, do you think he'd get any credit, Jeff?
No, they would say, look at all the researchers and doctors, and, you know, he's putting out of business. I'm telling you, that's what they would say.
Does to come up here, and you think it would be the right thing for him to do. He's better off taking a lower profile, kind of like, I hate to admit it, but kind of like what Schumer did. He got challenged last week by on 3 consecutive questions trying to get his formal endorsement of Plattner, and his response was the same. I'm going to do everything I can to take Susan Collins out. I'm going to do everything I can to take Susan Collins out. That's all he kept repeating, but he wouldn't come out outright and say that he would endorse him. Now he is, because the guy's been voted in. But Trump just needs to say, I'm going to do everything I can to support Susan Collins and to keep, Plattner out. We need to keep the Republicans in the Senate. That's all he needs to say. But he didn't come up here and campaign for her in any large way at all 6 years ago, and she was on the ropes, let me tell you, and she pulled it off. So I just say, let her do her thing. She's got a good following up here because she does vote liberal, whether we want to admit it or not. We all know she votes liberal on a lot of issues. Look at the SAVE Act. She's one of the 4 people that didn't support it. So those people up here will continue to support Susan Collins, and I think they'll just turn their backs on that other moron that's running. But that's just my thought. I don't know,
Harry, from your lips to God's ears. I really hope you're right. But that's very interesting information. Very interesting. So you're saying, listen, Jeff, discard the polls. They've been wrong in the past. They're wrong now. She delivers the bacon. She's a liberal Republican. They know that in Maine. And you think that she's got more staying power than people actually realize. So we'll see. We'll find out. I hope you're right, Harry. I really do. Harry, thank you so much for that call. Jason in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Jason, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. I hope I can get my point out before you cut me off. I think the guy's a scumbag. The sex thing is the worst thing. But explain the rise of people like Plattner and all the... And I'm a Jew, too, so please don't take this the wrong way. But the rise of people like him and all the anti-Jew hatred in this country goes back to what a few callers ago, about an hour ago, said. The guy's anti-Semitic and should be arrested and put it on trial for it. It's relatable to the black fatigue in the country right now. It's just a few decades further along. People are sick of being told they're anti-Semitic. And if they're anti-Semitic, they should be put on trial for stating anti-Semitic things. I'm a Jew. I don't care if somebody's anti-Semitic. This is America. You have a right to be a scumbag. You're either for the Constitution or you're not.
Oh, Jason, so you're saying you think there's a bit of a backlash. In other words, people just don't like to be censored. They don't like to be canceled. They don't like to be muzzled. They don't like to be threatened with going to prison or losing their jobs or their careers if they happen to say very offensive or outrageous or even bigoted things, correct?
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm a Jew. I don't care if somebody's anti-Semitic. What do I care? What do I care what they think or what they say? I know how I feel, and I know the truth of my being. Why? What does it matter if somebody's anti-Semitic? You know, it's like, and who cares if he had an AR-15 laying around his house? Like, I'm laying around my house. Who cares? The problem is the guy's a pervert. The guy's mentally unstable. And he shouldn't be running for political office. And that's it.
Well, Jason, I think, Jason, I think that's why the AR-15. It's not you having an AR-15 lying around the house. It's him. You know, when the way, Mr. I want to rape people who come into my house. You know, the guy, beats on his girlfriends. The guy, forgive me, he can't stop himself. He sees a porta potty in public. He rushes in and you know what he's doing in there. You know, the guy is, fantasizing about killing people. I mean, that's, he's sharpening his axe as he's watching television and, going on about beating women or, cutting people's throats. And I think, Jason, I don't know how you feel. I'm not saying you put him in jail for a Nazi tattoo. I'm just saying, who the hell has an SS tattoo for 18 years? And in front of his girlfriends is walking around with, bare chested. And he's saying, look at it. It's my baby. This is my baby. The SS. Jason, this is one sick puppy, man. I mean, am I wrong?
It's just like all the liberals. Let's see how loud I can scream and what reaction I get out of it. God bless you, Jeff. Take care, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jason. No, please, it's not having an AR-15 around the house. It's him having an AR-15. But it's the women who are saying, look, he says abusive things. He says crazy things. He shakes us. He hits us. He twists our arms. He's verbally abusive. He throws us and locks us in a room. He goes on obsessively about raping people, killing people, the rages that he will just explode for no reason. And it's frightening. They say when he gets like this, he just goes absolutely berserk over something very little. He'll lose his temper at any time. He's emotionally, psychologically, verbally abusive. He says the sickest, most vile things. And they said, look, it's just weird. He just is staring into outer space or watching TV and why are you sharpening an axe? Do you want to kill somebody? Do you want to chop somebody's head off? So, look, I have an axe at my house. My father had an axe. It's not a problem. You have to sharpen it. I got to sharpen mine once in a while. It's just him. It's the profile, the picture they're creating of this guy. And you're like, whoa. No, what they were basically saying is they would think, is he going to grab that AR-15 and just start bang, 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 just shooting people? That's what they're really insinuating. Not having an AR-15 around the house. Look, I don't want to say it again because I've said it twice, but he's so unstable. I honestly worry if you let him into the Senate. And by the way, how do I say this? He can't control his emotions. There's something about him. He's unhinged. He's genuinely unhinged. I don't want a guy like him in the Senate with potentially carrying a weapon or a gun. I'm telling you, I don't want it. He's the kind of guy that would go postal. All right, we've got her. Dr. Grace putting liberals in their place. Grace Woto, full disclosure, my wonderful wife, my better half. Grace Graham Plattner is the big story from yesterday. They did it. The Democrats now have crossed the Rubicon. They voted for the guy with a Nazi SS tattoo. Who's the Nazi now? What's your reaction?
Hello, Jeff. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Great to be with you. Well, what a troubling event you have been brilliant this morning, and you have showed all the ways that this person should never, ever, ever have been in the running. Never mind now be the nominee of the Democratic Party for Senate. So you've been brilliant in dismantling him. But what I do want to say is, I don't think the key question right now is, what's wrong with the guy? I think the question is, what's his appeal? Why did he get this far? And, Jeff, I listened to his campaign victory speech with great interest, because what he has done is he has taken Trump's key talking points of 2020 and 2024, and with a few exceptions, he's added a couple of liberal twist to it, like, he's for Roe v. Wade, and he supports ICE, and he's not a Christian. So take away those three items. But everything else he says is very similar to what Trump said. So he's against foreign wars. He wants the full release of the Epstein files. He focuses on community and how corporations have taken away people's power and wealth, and how the swamp keeps enriching itself, including Susan Collins, who has gone to Washington, and her own wealth has expanded exponentially at the expense of the people. So my point is, this is a very flawed man who should never be anywhere near elected office. There's no question about that. But we have to ask, what's the appeal? And the appeal is that he's taking Trump's talking points. And that is what brought him to victory. And it shows us that those campaign pledges, they're so important, the one that Trump had made. And we, the Republicans, have to deliver on those. Because if we don't deliver on those, other people are going to take them. And it's dangerous. Like the affordability crisis is real to people. It's not just an ideology. It's real. And he's there now pounding the pavement saying corporations are taking away Americans' wealth, and they're in cahoots with the ruling class, and we're not getting anywhere. And so what people are hearing is not what you, Jeff Kuhner, just said this morning, which is extremely important to hear. What they're hearing is, I can't get ahead, and maybe this guy, he's very flawed, but maybe he can help. That's what they're hearing.
I hear what you're saying, and I think you're making an excellent point. I think you're really encapsulating what the appeal is for a lot of people who are struggling in Maine. I think there's no question. This is what I can't wrap my mind around. And I'm not doing this to score rhetorical debating points. I have been called a Nazi so many times by liberals, Democrats, leftists, liberals who listen to this show. If I had $1 for every time they called me a Nazi or a fascist or a white supremacist, sweetheart, honestly, we'd be multimillionaires. We could retire and, go to South Carolina or whatever and just put our feet up. That's how often. Trump, ditto, even 100 times more than I have. The members of this audience, over and over. So here you have the Democrats who for a decade have called anybody who's a Republican, a conservative, never mind Trump and a Trump supporter, a Nazi, a fascist, Hitler, white supremacist. And they literally now are supporting a guy with a freaking Nazi, not even a Nazi, an SS death head tattoo. The worst of the Nazis. And by the way, 18 years he had it. He only got rid of it because he was running for office. And a tattoo that every ex-girlfriend he's had said he was proud of. He knew what it meant. He's lying when he says, I had no idea what that was. No, he knew. And he bragged and he told them, it's my tattoo. I love it. Kiss it. Lick it. And that's what he told them. So my question to you is, how can the Democrats, from one side of their mouth, call their enemies Nazis, and then on the other side, praise a man who literally had a Nazi tattoo? What do you say to that argument?
Jeff, it's completely indefensible. So their attacks on us have been indefensible, and their support of him is indefensible. I have just no words for it whatsoever. It's shocking, it's deplorable, and it's really distressing. But what I what strikes me is that we now have a commie that's been elected in New York City, which is another one nightmare right there that we're seeing unfolding right before our eyes. And we have this extreme populist that's just become the candidate in Maine. Why is this happening? This is what I find distressing. Not that you were attacked for 20 years or we've been attacked. I know that. We know that. But the politics of this country are becoming really, really dangerous. And we have to ask ourselves, why is this happening?
What's your theory? Why is it happening?
Well, it's happening, Jeff, because now it's been election after election after election where the people are saying we don't want any more foreign wars. We don't want it. Stop it. We don't want to not be able to afford the cost of living. We need help. We've been saying it now over and over again. So you have this growing populism on the right and on the left, and now it's mixed in with these extreme crazies that are taking over the movement. But the core is that the people feel that they do not have control over their own communities. You know, if you listen to his victory speech, he's saying, I don't recognize the Maine that I grew up in. It's the same kind of stuff that J.D. was saying. He didn't recognize the Midwest that he grew up in. And Blattner is blaming somebody like Susan Collins. He's saying, you have lined your pockets, which is true. This woman is now worth between $4 to $10 million. She's been a senator since we were married in 1996. We celebrate our 30-year anniversary. This woman has been a senator for 30 years. She's become extremely rich. And have the people of Maine enriched themselves to the degree that she has? No. Now, this guy is a moron. He's bad news. No question about it. He should never even been elected. He should never been anywhere near public office. But what he's talking about is real. And what he's talking about is the real crisis that Trump campaigned on. And yet we have our president that now has embroiled us in another war. This is not just an ideological point now. It's real for people. We said no more. We don't want to hear any excuses about it. And the affordability crisis has not improved. So we have a big problem right now. And the swamp is still there. She's a swamp creature. Every day you talk on the show that Susan Collins is a swamp creature. He's saying the same thing.
Grace, we've got about 2 minutes left. I want to ask you now about the anti-Semitism. He's a virulent anti-Semite. It's not just the tattoo. It's the Jews run Washington. The Jews run America. The Jews, he blames the Jews for all the problems affecting the United States. You've got AOC, anti-Semite, Bernie, Jew hater. You've got Rashida Tlaib, Jew hater. Ilhan Omar, Jew hater, as she put it. It's all about the Benjamins, that the Jews run Congress. Is the Democratic Party now an anti-Semitic party?
Anti-Semitic, anti-Christian, anti-Western, anti-capitalist, anti-free market,
anti-white,
anti-family party.
Anti-white.
It's all of those things. Anti-white. You know, the ideology is totally toxic and corrosive.
Is that explaining part of his rise, though, that this hatred for the Jews? Because what distinguishes him from Janet Mills, his competitor? What distinguishes him is his tattoo and his hatred for Jews and Israel. We've got 30 seconds. Go.
Well, yes, but that's wrapped into a dislike of America being involved in the Middle East. That's where it gets tricky for the average person. So he's a disgusting anti-Semite. But what the people are hearing is, I don't want our governments involved in any more wars, period.
Interesting. Okay, Dr. Grace is saying, pay attention to his populist message as bad and flawed and evil and really unhinged. Okay, the cut that I wanted to play at about 6:30 that Mike and Sandy refused to play. Again, who am I? I'm just the host. Well, we're going to play it now. So it's part of Truth or Troll. So 7:20, you know what that means. Truth or Troll. Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from Graham Plattner, who was speaking to Maine voters the other day when he fired off a grave threat towards billionaires. Here is the aforementioned cut.
We're going to build it in a way that doesn't just prioritize the bottom lines of private equity firms or hedge funds or corporations. We're going to do it to prioritize the well-being and decency of every single person in this country. We need to get money out of politics. We need to get rid of Citizens United. If I had my way, elections would last 2 months. They would be publicly funded. And if a billionaire looked at a TV ad the wrong way, we'd put him in jail.
So there it is. Billionaires to jail. Does he really mean it, or is he just trolling?
Oh, it's truth. I mean, it's no question about it. I think he tried to say it in a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek way, because that's obviously, this is very extreme for the United States. Maybe not in China, maybe not in Putin's Russia, maybe not in Iran, these other countries that he's obviously very sympathetic to. But in the United States of America, just because you happen to be wealthy doesn't justify you putting that person in prison. That's something Xi Jinping does, or the Ayatollah, or Putin, or whatever. So, no, Mike, I think he's serious as a heart attack. And to be fair to him, I think Bernie feels the same way. AOC, most Democrats now, radical, the commie-crats, I believe they feel exactly the same way. And what they're not telling us is ultimately they want to put us in jail. That's where it's all going to lead to. So they start off with a few. It's going to be the billionaires, the Jews. By the way, he's bankrolled by billionaires. He's a complete fraud. Complete fraud. He's wealthy himself, or he was born in a wealthy family, but he's bankrolled by billionaires. So, no, George Soros is not going to go to jail. Neville Singham is not going to go to jail. Those two wealthy DSA champagne socialists that recruited him, and they're swimming in money, they're not going to go to jail. No, what he means is the billionaires that oppose us, oppose me, and oppose the democratic machine. We're going to take care of you. And obviously, the Jews. See, they really want to go after the Jews. But they're going to come for us, Mike. But anyway, just my opinion. I want to ask all of you, truth or troll. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner. When Graham Plattner says he wants to put billionaires in jail, is he A, saying the truth, or B, trolling? He's just joking around. You know where I stand. I am A, truth. You better believe him, because I believe he's absolutely serious. Anyway, it's up to you. Agree, disagree. I want to hear, have as many of you vote as possible. You can also vote via X. Again, I was active last night on X. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report. Kuhn as in National ER. Julie in Tewksbury. Thanks for holding, Julie, and welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Julie.
So I'm really curious. No one can really answer this for me, but it seems like we have so many rhinos in office, like on every level. Why don't we have the opposite? Why don't we have dinos? It seems like Fetterman, who's a legitimate Democrat, is like a normal Democrat, is like a Republican now. He's like the dino. Like, why don't we infiltrate them like they do to us and just start throwing wrenches into everything they do? I don't understand why we're not doing this.
Because, Julie, I'm telling you as an historian, I can tell you this with absolute certainty. The one thing the left has over the right, or leftists have over conservatives or patriots or whatever you want to call us, is they understand the art of politics much better than we do. They're much more ruthless at it. They are much more committed to it. They outmaneuver their opponents over and over and over again. And I've seen it in country after country, not just in the United States. This happens all over the world. And I can sum it up for you in one sentence. Because leftists like Plattner, here, if you want, I'll even play you the cut. He actually says, I'm not a religious man. By the way, that's typical of Nazis and communists. They're very a-religious. Okay, both of them. Both of those movements. He says, I'm not a religious man, but I believe in the kingdom of God on earth. Socialism, national socialism, communism. So you see, for them, politics is everything. What he's saying, and the crowd was cheering like crazy, politics is his religion. People on the right tend to be religious in whatever denomination or whatever, but they tend to be much more, people of faith. So for us, we go to church on Sunday. No, for them, it's Sunday 7 days a week. For them, it's about the salvation of humanity. And they think they're arrogant enough to be the ones that are going to save everybody. And that's why for them, it's politics nonstop. And for conservatives and others, we believe in family, we believe in God, we believe in church, we believe in community. For us, politics is just a way to elect people into office. Okay, this is from 617. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. Without question, the big story yesterday, especially from the primaries. Lindsey Graham won, which was not a surprise. I was hoping he would lose, but he didn't. So he's going to be the Republican nominee for the Senate again in November, and most likely will win in November. But anyway, the big news was Graham Plattner, the guy with the Nazi tattoo. He won. He won convincingly, got over 72% of the vote. Democrats are excited about him. They believe he can not just knock off Senator Susan Collins, a rhino's rhino, but deliver Maine, and that will give them the majority in the Senate. And this will give Democrats control not only of the House if they win in November, but also full control of the Senate, meaning they will control both branches of Congress. And on top of it, they say that the Graham Plattner phenomenon, whereby he's getting support from especially younger voters, college voters, who really, I think, his anti-Semitism really resonates with them. His soak the rich, communist message of redistribution and putting billionaires in jail, and of course his hatred for Israel and of the Jews in general, of a Jewish conspiracy running and controlling the United States, that and the Muslim vote. I know there aren't many. There are Somalis now. They're all in on Graham Plattner. He is starting to get the anti-Semitic Islamists as well. So he's trying to cobble together a coalition laid out first by Bernie and AOC and Mamdani, and now he wants to replicate that in Maine. So my question to you, is Graham Plattner now the future of the Democratic Party, or do you think he will be an albatross around their neck going into November? This is from 617. You can text me 70470. As always, Jeff, people rarely vote with their brains. They vote with their emotions. They vote with a blind allegiance to how the candidate makes them feel, and feel is all in caps. Plattner so skillfully, so artfully, so deceptively makes disgruntled Mainers who support him feel angry, even vengeful, and proud and hopeful. Much like that guy in the 1930s who spawned that SS tattoo on Plattner's chest. All Plattner needs to do is shave his beard and leave the middle of his mustache. Well, there's no question he's read Mein Kampf. He's an admirer of Mein Kampf. And you can tell he's taken a couple of pages out of Hitler's playbook. Public speaking, how to scapegoat, how to try to hypnotize and galvanize an audience. You can clearly see that. And he knows how to play to grievances and scapegoat and make people feel both hateful, vengeful, and yet proud and hopeful at the same time. So it's classic Hitler in terms of his speeches and his presentation. This is from 603, and it makes a very, very good point. Jeff, doesn't it stand to reason that if Democrat politicians will put their political party above their country, and they do, and champion causes that will utterly destroy this nation, and they do, that some of those same Democrat politicians who happen to be of Jewish descent would support a candidate like Plattner, whose ideology hates their ethnicity and historically sought to destroy their ancestors? The Democrat Party cult is their pseudo-religion, and it takes precedence above all else, including country, ancestry, decency, sanity, and even humanity. We shouldn't be surprised by any forms of hypocrisy or double-mindedness from these people. They are dyed-in-the-wool cult members, and they all suffer from the same mental disorder, modern liberalism, or at least what masquerades itself as liberalism. Bingo. Bingo. Absolute genius. It's a cult. It's not a political party. It's a cult. It's a pseudo-religion. And once you understand that, think about it. If you're a member of a cult, all you do is what the cult wants you to do all day, all night, nonstop. If you're a pseudo-religion, all you do, you're like a fundamentalist. You have to live your political faith. It's everything. It defines you. You do, it's your whole life. It's your whole being. And you will do everything and anything to defeat your enemy. In this case, us, conservatives, patriots, America, and now increasingly the eternal boogeyman, the Jews. 617-266-6868. Mark in Lowell. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, I had a couple of comments. One about this Graham guy. I was waiting for the Democrats to vote him in over there. But I bet you a dime if anyone does any research on this guy, they'll find that he's tied to some kind of supremacist group. Because that's why he has the tattoo. And I'm surprised he's not a skinhead somewhere along his lifeline. And that's part one. And I also believe that I hope Susan Collins does win, but not sure because it doesn't matter. She's a Democrat too. So I don't know what to say about that. It might be better to have this idiot there to really show that the concept of white nationalism or supremacy is really on the Democratic side, like the KKK was and all these other hate groups. And it's just not hate against, it's not anti-Semitic, it's anti-everything. And I thought we had civil rights laws in place in the 60s. So anyone that spouts off anti-Semitic things or anything should be arrested and put on trial. And maybe that's what he's looking for, but I think it should be. I don't care if he's a politician or not.
Oh, no, you're dead on. Mark, you're absolutely dead on. No, the thing, look, he's made many controversial statements. Look, I think the man is a lunatic. You want my honest opinion. And I'm not saying this as, as an attack, like a left-wing lunatic, like meaning an extremist, a Marxist, or a communist. No, I mean, I think he's severely mentally ill. I don't think he's right in the head. I genuinely, my fear is, I don't want to repeat it, but, well, I will repeat it. I think if he gets elected, I don't know what the hell if Ted Cruz, I'm just picking him as an example, challenges him in a debate, or if Josh Hawley just tears him a new one at a committee hearing, I'm telling you, this guy's going to pull out a gun and shoot somebody. He's going to go postal. He's crazy. The way, who says repeatedly for years to his ex-girlfriends, I want somebody to burglarize our apartment. Why? So I can rape him. What? Yeah, I want to rape him. I have a fantasy about raping him. It's not a sex thing. That's what he said. It's not a sex thing or a gay thing. It's a domination thing. I want to rape men to dominate them. Buddy, you are sick in the head. Look, I'm sorry, really. I don't care. I really don't. What people do in the privacy of their bedroom, sleep with whoever you want. I don't care. You know me, I'm a traditional Catholic. I'm a one-woman guy. I've only been with one woman my entire life. But this guy has a sexual fetish to this day where he admits, he goes, I go to these porta potties, these public, portable toilets, and forgive me, he's masturbating. I don't know how else to say it. And he does it again and again. It's a thing. Or he's sexting other people, other women or young girls as he's pleasuring himself. The guy's he's a freaking pervert. Okay, look, the one positive thing about Graham Plattner winning the Democratic primary in Maine yesterday, the left can never, ever, ever call Trump or Trump supporters or conservatives Nazis or Hitler or fascists ever again. Don't even dare. Okay? Don't even. Hey, you can say whatever you want about Donald J. Trump or me or, I don't care. Take your pick. Stephen Miller or J.D. Vance they don't walk around with an SS death head tattoo on their chest. Okay? So that's it. End of discussion. Now, many of you are saying, Jeff, just super quick, could you give us a couple of other radical positions that Plattner has embraced? Well, here, listen to this. It's on his campaign website. He wants to give all of America's land back to every single Native American Indian tribe or group. So essentially, he wants to dismember the entire country. Now, I'm not saying he's going to do it, but I'm saying that's what he's in favor of. So it's not just reparations for slavery. He supports that as well, but just the whole country. Just give it all back. Which means what would happen to all of us, including him? Like, where do we all end up going? you. He's also said on multiple occasions that all white people in the United States, that means white women and white men, and it was pretty much outside of the Somalis, because he did do very well with the Somalis, but outside of the Somalis, it was all white people that elected him in Maine. But it doesn't matter. According to him, all white people are, quote, inherently racist and stupid. So he's pushing this anti-white racism, which is also at the heart of the Democratic Party. Well, dude, have you looked? I mean, I know you've got the Totenkopf tattoo and maybe you can't stop looking at it. But if you would just stop looking at it for 1 second, look at the color of your skin. You know, when in those nude pictures you keep sending around to young women, you're white. That means all Susan Collins has to say in the debate, well, you keep saying that white people are racist and stupid. Well, look at you. You're racist and stupid. So you've just disqualified yourself. Why would somebody elect a racist, stupid man? Because according to you, every white person is racist and stupid. This is what I mean when I say he's so extreme, he's so radical, but also mentally unhinged. He's crazy. He's just, and when you look at his face, forgive me, you can tell. Like, the elevator doesn't go to the top. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Colin in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Colin, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How are you this morning?
Very good. How are you, Colin?
I'm doing well. I just want to make a point about the election itself in November. The state of Maine, essentially from Lewiston to Portland south, is gained in traction for what the Democratic Party has become, being more hard left, and Plattner could do well there. But the electorate in that first congressional district is predominantly independent. Almost a third of the voters are independent voters that traditionally have voted for Susan Collins. Now, the one big thing about the race is that second congressional district, which Donald Trump carried 56% to 44% over Harris in 2024. And two things about Susan Collins. The fentanyl policy that the Trump administration has enacted, that, by the way, has decreased fentanyl import by 89%, was authored in the Senate by Susan Collins, and Trump did give her, a pat on the back for getting that through. The other thing happened yesterday in the Senate. The SAVE Act on its last legs, Lindsey Graham trying to put a rider in to, end men being in women's sports, and the filibuster got defeated with Susan Collins being the deciding vote. But the big thing is Mike Lee, the author of the original SAVE Act. That SAVE Act was saved. The deciding vote, Susan Collins. And I would think what could happen going into October is Trump's, I believe, is going to have to do a targeted endorsement in that second congressional district to get out the base, to come vote, hold their nose. He could say something like, "Hey, we've had our differences in the past," but I think he's gonna come and give her some type of endorsement to have that second congressional district rise up and get the MAGA vote to vote for her, to put her over the top. And the other thing I wanted to ask you is, if more stuff comes out on Plattner, will the Democrat Party replace them? And I'll leave it at that, and I'll hang up and listen.
Colin, thank you. Very good information, by the way, on the breakdown of these different districts and how the vote tallies will go. Look, you're right. Portland, Lewiston are going to go heavily for Plattner. Susan Collins will do very, very well in the rest of the state. And that's why, she doesn't poll well, but they come out. Somehow they come out, and she always seems to grind out a victory. So we'll see. Maybe she will need Trump's endorsement or targeted endorsement. We'll see. But I can tell you this with absolute certainty. They are now all in on Graham Plattner. They can't walk this one back. And there's going to be more to come out. I think one of the previous callers said he had to be part of a Nazi hate group or a national socialist or whatever, fascist hate group. Look, that kind of a tattoo, not just that you get it, but that you wear it that proudly, that you brag about it to your ex-girlfriends. Look, this is a guy that had an AR-15 just lying around the house. This is a guy, as I said, fantasizes about raping men who will break into his apartment. According to two of his girlfriends, he would watch television holding an axe, like what you chop down a tree with, and he would just be sharpening the axe, watching television, just sharpening it for no reason, just sharpening it. Like, I'm not kidding. It's like, something out of a horror movie. Like, I don't know, Halloween or Friday the 13th. You're like one of these, like slashers. These, the mass murderers that you see in a horror film. And he's got the Nazi tattoo. Really, he's got the sexual fetish with the porta potties. He's abusing women. He rails against Jews. And he sits and watches television, and he's just sharpening that axe because he just wants to split somebody's head open. So you're dealing with a deranged, seriously disturbed man. And you don't have that kind of a Nazi tattoo and espouse that kind of Jew hatred and vile anti-Semitism for that many years. And also, to me, what is unforgivable, because he did serve multiple tours, where he's watching the same videos over and over again of our troops in Afghanistan, and in particular, this unit, and they're being shot at by the Taliban, and they may all get killed. And so this hero, really, he's a hero. He won a Purple Heart, sacrifices potentially his life and starts drawing fire towards him. So he's taking bullets from the Taliban, and he took, I believe, 4 bullets. Correct me if I'm wrong. He got shot 4 times. And he saved 7 of his fellow, service members, his fellow Americans. And Plattner is watching this. It's on social media. And he watches it over and over again, and he's laughing at the American soldier being shot. And he's mocking him, calling him, forgive me, a fat ass and a dumb mother effer. That's what he goes, oh, you dumb mother effer. And he's laughing at him. And he says, you should have had your head blown off. You're so effing stupid. And he's cheering the Taliban on. He's mocking this man, disparaging his courage and bravery. He saved 7 lives and, suffered serious wounds. He's lucky he wasn't killed. And he's basically saying they should have killed him. The Taliban should have killed him. And he gets off on this. No. The worst is yet to come. Believe me, we've just scratched the surface with this guy. No, they're going to back him all the way. And the reason why they're going to back him all the way, and I think this is what we're missing, because it's so foreign to you, to me, to this audience. We don't get the New Democratic Party because it's so alien to us. The New Democratic Party is Zoran Mamdani. The New Democratic Party on college campuses with the keffiyeh and them protesting and saying the only good Jew is a dead Jew. Or, death to Israel, or death to America, or from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, meaning exterminate all the Jews that live in Israel. And that they, take over buildings and attack police officers and, whatever, and start rioting. That's the Democratic Party that's electing Graham Plattner. That's the base. Those are their shock troops. Those are the ones in California that stole it for Nithya Rahman. Those are the ones, the activists, the hardcore, that went to homeless encampment after homeless encampment and said, put fake addresses, gave these names, and stole it for her against Spencer Pratt. Those are their shock troops. So you can't overthrow a guy like Plattner. You see, if you notice, they don't just say, let's hold our nose and vote for him. What they're saying is Bernie, Schumer, Warren, AOC, Mamdani. I could go down the line. He's a, quote, political rock star. He's a phenom. He's a future, quote, superstar. They look at him and they say, our people love him. They can't get enough of him. And what the bile that he's selling, they love it. They're yucking it up. They want more of it. So what I'm trying to tell you is the Democratic Party now is an anti-Semitic party. It's a radically different party. It's in some ways, look, remember I had Dinesh D'Souza on a couple of years ago. Remember he wrote a book about the ties between National Socialism, in other words, the Nazi roots of the Democrat Party, and it went back to FDR, and even before FDR. And everybody thought he was a lunatic, having written that book. He now looks absolutely prophetic. He said, no, you don't understand the fundamental principles of the Democratic Party. If you really look at them, resemble a lot the Nazi National Socialist Party. And the reason why they keep attacking everybody and anything is Nazi, 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 to the point that they sound insane and it's like an obsession, is because it's classic projection. They know the demons they're wrestling within themselves. So they're projecting their sins upon others. Now it's all come out. As Larry in Arkansas said, they've shed their skin. He's their guy. They found their man. He has the courage of his convictions. No matter what happens now, no matter what comes out, they will support him to the end because their voters won't let them do anything different. They are now a captive of the radical left. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Andy, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well, Jeff. I'm doing very well. Well, hey, at least we put forth our best effort to try to send Senator Lindsey Graham packing. So,
well, what can you do? I mean, look, we did get Cassidy out, and we did get Cornyn out, and those are two huge victories.
Hey,
and, so hopefully we'll get him the next time. Andy, you can't win them all, as they say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's very true, Jeff. That's very true. The big story, Jeff, Graham Plattner winning the Democratic nomination up in Maine. It's very simple, Jeff. This guy has told us who he is, and we need to believe him. And by extension, the modern Democratic Party is telling us who they are, and we need to believe them. And that needs to be the messaging going into the fall. And that's a big part of what Susan Collins needs to say, is that this guy is telling you who he is, and you need to believe him.
Andy, the question is, will the Democrats, those that are still sane, that are still tethered to reality, someone like a John Fetterman, will they believe him? That's the question. And will the voters in Maine believe him? That, to me, that's the $64,000 question. Because right now, if you look at the polls, Plattner is leading Susan Collins. He's leading her by, it depends which poll you look at. Some have him leading by as much as 9 points. Others, it's a little closer, 6, 7 points. But it's way beyond the margin of error. And, it's not double digits, but it's 7, 8, 9 points. That's no joke. So as things stand right now, if the election was held right now in Maine, according to the polls, Plattner would win, and it would be, I'm not saying a landslide, but it would be quite a convincing win. So it seems that people in Maine, at least the majority so far, they're buying his BS. He's a con man, and he's conning them. What say you, Andy?
Jeff, I had this conversation with my sister a while back. The younger adults, like the younger adults age 30 to 35 and the under 30s, we have got to do something to make the present economics work for them, because for a lot of them, Jeff, they're not feeling it. For example, they don't see a day where they're ever going to be able to afford a home of their own, just from the standpoint of the economics that their generation is dealing with. And we've got to work very hard for them to be able to see that through hard, honest work they're going to be able to have a piece of this American pie, so to speak. And this is why, and this is why what we've achieved in the primaries is very key with defeating the big money, defeating the special interest, because if that America First agenda is successful, then the economic tide for these younger adults is going to start to turn. Then opportunity is going to open up for them to have their own white picket fence and a piece of the pie. But you see, right now, Jeff, they're not seeing it.
Oh, I agree. No, Andy, I agree with you. Look, I think there's no question that people in their 20s and 30s feel that the American dream is beyond them. They do. They find getting a home now almost too expensive, impossible financially. Many of them have massive debt from going to college, huge college debt. The cost of living for them is way too high. Everything is expensive. Everything. Rent is a bomb. I mean, you name it. Food, groceries, buying a car. Life has become so unaffordable and so expensive. And I think that's what's making them susceptible to the lies that Plattner and AOC and Bernie and Mamdani are selling, which is essentially communism. We'll give you everything for free. We'll take care of you from cradle to grave. 617-266-6868. Okay, just very, very quickly, because the lines are loaded. Grace texted me during the break when we were off air. And she says, look, I just want to stress again, I can't stand him. I don't like him. I would never vote for him. In fact, I think he's a very dangerous, unhinged individual. She said, however, he's imitating Trump, meaning Plattner. Plattner is imitating Trump, and that message is powerful. His supporters can't afford to go to the grocery store, so they don't care who helps them. Anyone will do. Anyone. So let me throw this log on the fire. Is Grace right? Are they overlooking all of the scandals? Everything that would normally sink any other candidate? Because, as Grace put it, they can't afford to pay the groceries. Their backs are against the wall. And so at this point, they'll vote for anyone who they believe will at least start to alleviate their plight and help them put food on the table. Does that explain Plattner's rise and success so far? Agree, disagree? Bob in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Hey, how you doing there, Jeff?
I'm good. How are you, Bob?
Good, thank you. Hey, a couple of things. So this has been going on way too long. So first of all, you're not going to fix any problems when the people that are supposed to be taking care of the problems are part of the problem. For instance, 2016, Elliot Spitzer, we know what he was about, talking about all his indiscretions, about all of Trump's indiscretions and the Me Too movement. But he was on the CNN panel talking about it. They loved him. Bill Clinton, we know what he did. Jimmy Kimmel with blackface and his misogynistic man show, where he used to belittle women like there was no tomorrow, make fun of Ebonics and black people, and dress in blackface. They accepted. So this stuff goes on forever. It's never going to change. Liberals just vote for those kind of people because they're allowed to do it. And it's a shame, but it's never going to stop. This isn't anything new.
Bob, when this guy says, and he said it repeatedly, that women who get raped deserve it, they had it coming. When you've got not just one, not just two, not just three, but ex-girlfriend after ex-girlfriend after ex-girlfriend saying he yells, he screams constantly, he's very abusive, he grabs you, shakes you, twists your arm, hits you, will throw you into a room and lock it and basically keep you in that room imprisoned for hours, if not days, until you apologize to him. In other words, he's an abusive man he's abused women, and he continues to abuse women. After a while, do you think liberals and Democrats will care? Or are they just willing to ignore everything this man does?
Again, this has been going on forever. The people that are in charge that investigate these kinds of crimes and all these sick things and everything, they're part of the problem. They do it too. None of them go to jail. Nobody's ever held accountable. And liberals, they've been voting for these kind of people forever. This is not new. I'm not justifying the guy. I got a wife and daughter. I would never leave it to the court system to take care of that guy if he did it to them. 86 would be my favorite number again. You know, you can't. It's the justice system on both sides. Listen, the R&D behind your name doesn't mean jack anymore. It really doesn't. They're all on the same side of the law, and none of them are ever going to be held accountable for anything.
Interesting, Bob. Bob, thank you very, very much for that call. Look, to me, I'm amazed that a loser like this won the nomination. And now, if you believe the polls, and I know the polls tend to be off in Maine, but you go by the polls, he's going to beat Susan Collins. That to me is just a mind bender. Okay, George in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, George, and welcome.
Great show.
Thank you, George.
I think the issue that I'm seeing is the riffraff behind P. Hustle. That's what I see from working in Maine. Is that type? And I guess you asked the question: what scares you more? What defective personality trait this idiot has, or this monster? It's more Collins. I don't think the Republicans, that playbook of years past where Collins has pulled it off last minute and the polls are incorrect. I mean, that's an old play, and I think we're just in a new era right now. So that's all I can say on the whole issue.
George, you think he's going to win in November?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, why?
Because he can relate to the average. I mean, he's everyone's drug dealer in Maine. He's your cousin that's a screw up, and that's what the new play is. That's why Trump won. He's just a common man. So I mean, they need a response with someone that's not the old school McCain. Politics.
Yeah, an elitist rhino Republican like Susan Collins. I didn't look at it that way, but it's true, George. Look, people are saying the way he dresses, he swears a lot, even in his campaign videos, everything about him, they say he's relatable to many people in Maine. He doesn't shave, he's gruff. Many members of the audience, many of you in Kuhner country, you keep texting, emailing, messaging. You won't stop how you think Graham Plattner's going to win in November. And I'm like, this is a very, very depressing thought. Anyway, 9:34 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. I just want to read, I could read so many texts, but let me just read one. It is from 617. Again, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. Jeff, Susan Collins helped create Graham Plattner in a big way. Her message is basically milquetoast and is in tune with the tone of her voice. Meanwhile, you have Plattner sounding like an alpha male. He looks like the guy that could fix your truck if it was stuck in a ditch. He looks like the guy that could help you out if you were in a jam. This is dangerous. Susan Collins has her work cut out for her, and I don't think she's up for the challenge. So let me throw this log on the fire. Do you believe Plattner will win? Many of you say yes, and you're depressing me. 617-266-6868. Diane in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Diane, and welcome.
Good morning.
Hi, Diane.
I was just calling because they're hypocrites. They always say, I don't think they voted for Plattner, inflation or the war or any of that. They're going to vote for him just because he's a Democrat, period. And a commie, because that seems to be their thing these days. That's what they want, a communist. They don't care about the inflation. They want that. They literally want that. That's the globalist agenda anyway, 2030. They want to collapse the economy to make everybody dependent on the government so they can control us. That's what I think.
Oh, you're completely correct. Oh, Diane, you're, as I like to say, you're not 100, you're 1,000% correct. And everything that Graham Plattner is offering, all of his so-called solutions, policies, will destroy the middle and working class. I mean, you know, if they're looking to him to help with pay grocery bills, they're going to be lucky they're going to eat. This guy wants to collectivize agriculture. Do you know how insane that is? That's what led to, 7 million Ukrainians starving to death. That's what led to the famines that killed tens of millions in China under Mao. So what I'm saying is this guy is so radical and so extreme. Communism makes you poorer. It makes you hungrier. You practically don't own anything. He is going to ruin and impoverish the working middle class. And who gave us all this inflation? Biden, the Democrats. Who was the one that gave us this affordability crisis? Biden, the Democrats. So this is what they do. They create the problem, and then they offer themselves as the solution to the problem that they created. That's how they gave us Graham Plattner. To me, and Diane, I just really want to get your take on this. What they've never done, though, is given us a guy with an SS Nazi tattoo. Like that one, even for them, that's a new one. And rather than being a strike against them, it seems like the voters up there, they love it. Young women love it. They say it's sexy, it's attractive. Young voters say he's a real Jew hater, a real anti-Semite. It shows that this guy really hates the Jews. So what I'm saying is now they're giving us a Nazi, a kind of a Nazi communist or a communist Nazi, however you want to put it. So think of communism, but with a Nazi tattoo stamped on it. That, I thought the one thing they would never vote for is that. But apparently, Diane, I'm wrong. They'll even vote for a Nazi. Final word to you, Diane.
Exactly. Biden is he was the auto pen, and they just did whatever they wanted to do, and they had no problem with funneling billions and billions to Ukraine because it was being funneled and money laundered right back into their own pockets. These are people they're propping up, and they're literally saying central casting constantly because they're just hand-picking these people. And if they're always, always, always guilty of what they accuse the other side of. They're the ones that want genocide. They're the ones that hate the Jews. They're the anti-Semites. They're the hypocrites. They're the Nazis. And they love them. And they want that Mondani, too. They put Mondani in there. Same thing. He wants to make everyone dependent on the government. They don't even care that they drive out the billionaires. I don't think they really care because in the end, what they want is them to be at the top, controlling everyone else. They have plans to do that.
You nailed
it. They
want
to force you to take vaccines.
You nailed it. Well, and you're right. And they want power and control. And look at the people in New York City. Everyone's regretting their vote for Mamdani. Everything has gone up. Groceries, food, energy, electricity. The whole cost of living has soared under Mamdani. Crime out of control. Drugs out of control. He hasn't fixed a thing in New York. He's made New York now a dump, a third world dump. Except now you have more Islamists, more Muslim extremists, and Jew hatred is exploding in New York City. That's all you're getting now is more hatred against white people and more hatred against Jews. And by the way, more middle working class people fleeing. So if people in Maine think he's going to help, by the time Graham Plattner is done, just look at Mamdani, you're going to be leaving Maine. That's how much he's going to bury you. Diane, thank you so much for that call. Paul in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Yes, Jeff.
Hi, Paul.
How are you? I haven't called in a while. I just have a brief message. It is said that beware of false prophets, for they come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. And that's who Graham Plattner is. You can't be trusted.
Oh, I think you're completely correct. What in particular, I'm just curious, Paul, what bothers you the most about him?
What bothers me the most about him is he's not, I mean, he's out there and he's all over the place. And I just don't like him. I just do not like him. He cannot be trusted. He's like a Zoran Mandani. Look what Mandani did in the last 5 months. He just cannot be trusted.
But, I got to say this. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm not one to defend Mamdani, right? I can't stand the guy. But, I mean, he wasn't sexting young women of his private parts, and he's not, when he sees a porta potty in a public park, he's not running inside and, doing what he's doing in there. He's not, in other words, he's not a pervert. There are no reports of him, hitting women, beating women, abusing women. Even he doesn't say, "Oh, I can't wait for someone to break into my apartment. I want to rape them." I mean, So what I'm saying is, Paul, you look at one scandal, another scandal, and you say, "What's keeping this guy up?" And he gets more popular, Paul. That's the thing. The more scandals pile up, the more they love him.
I don't know. I think it's just a situation to where you're dealing with Zoran Mandani on steroids when it comes to Graham Plattner. He's even worse.
I agree.
Neither one of them can be trusted. Neither one of them.
I agree. If it's possible, you're right. He's worse than Mamdani. I never thought. Anyway, hey, I never thought I would say that, but you're right. And neither of them can be trusted. You're completely correct. Paul, thank you so much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Steve in Florida, the Freedom State. Thanks for holding, Steve, and welcome.
Jeff, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think you're wonderful. Jeff, let me give a reality check to all of Kuhner country. Communism is here now. They're here now. They're in our public schools. They're in our colleges. They're poisoning our children. They're poisoning our students. They're in Hollywood. They're in throughout media. And most importantly, they're in our government. This is Germany 100 years ago. The fact that people will leave these states, these California, New York, pardon me, conservative, wealthy people will leave. They want these people to leave. They want them to leave because these will become the first 100% communist states. And if they take over in 28, which they probably will, they'll probably steal it. The only thing stopping 100% communism, which will be here in 28, is Donald Trump. Just think what's happening to our country now while Donald Trump is our president. Think back what we had to live through prior to Donald Trump. Think when the FBI invaded people's homes. They took people in, innocent people, put them in jail, threatened them. People that went to schools, to meetings, to argue on behalf of their children, arrested. Men in girls' bathrooms. You can't fight back. We're here now, and it's only this president who's on a very short leash, and when he's gone, it's going to come back. And when it comes back, they will do things that we have never believed we would experience. So I'm very fearful. The real problem is, and I don't want to just fall back on this, John Thune, our leadership, not one Republican person has spoken out about this fellow Plattner Look, he could become the next leader of this frickin' country. Half the people in this country are so lacking in knowledge that they could vote for this man. I'm not calling about him winning. I'm calling about the state of our country now and what we're going to go into.
Steve, I wish I could disagree with you, but I can't. Really, it's a chilling call because it's a powerful call because it's a true call. And I think you're going to start, you're right. It's basically we're living in a communist culture. I thought you framed it very well. Our schools, our universities, Hollywood, entertainment, many parts of our government. And look what they've spawned. Look what they've created now. It's a monster. This guy Plattner. And my fear is there's going to be many more Plattners to come. And then we're up a creek without a paddle. You said Germany 100 years ago. I think you're right. And it's starting to really seem and smell and just get that overall feeling of the 1930s all over again. And Steve, I'm telling you, I've never seen this kind of Jew hatred in my entire lifetime. I've never seen it. There's a lot of anti-white racism, no question. But my God, I've never seen this. The Jews are being blamed for everything. And it's mainstream, it's accepted, it's almost normal. And anti-Semitism has found a real home in the Democratic Party. You listen to Plattner's speeches. Even 10 years ago, he would have been completely disqualified.